Hey everyone, welcome back to English Daisy Podcast. I'm Daisy, and I'm really happy you're here with us today.
And I'm Harry. It's great to have you with us again, and I hope you're ready for an interesting conversation.
Today, we're talking about something very simple but surprisingly powerful: how you can improve your English just by listening.
That sounds almost too easy, Daisy. I've listened to English for years, but I'm still not as confident as I'd like to be.
You're definitely not alone, Harry. A lot of learners listen to English regularly but still struggle when they have to speak.
That's exactly what happens to me. I can understand someone speaking English, but when they suddenly ask me a question, my mind goes completely blank.
That's such a common experience. You understand the language when you're listening, but producing the language yourself feels much harder.
So, can listening really make my speaking better?
Absolutely. Speaking practice is important, but listening gives your brain the patterns, phrases, pronunciation, and vocabulary it needs for natural communication.
Then maybe the problem isn't that I'm listening too little. Maybe I'm listening in the wrong way.
That's exactly what we're going to explore today, because there is a big difference between simply hearing English and actively listening to English.
I think we should start with that difference, because many learners probably think those two things are exactly the same.
They aren't quite the same. You can hear English without really paying attention. For example, you might have an English video playing while you're cooking dinner.
The English is entering my ears, but I'm mainly thinking about my dinner.
Exactly. That's hearing. Listening requires more attention. You're trying to understand the message, notice expressions, and follow what the speaker is actually saying.
So focused listening is more useful for learning.
Yes, especially when you're trying to improve your English. You don't always need to concentrate intensely, but some focused listening should be part of your routine.
What should learners listen for? Should they try to catch every individual word?
That's actually one of the biggest mistakes learners make. Don't make understanding every single word your main goal.
Really? I've always thought that good listening meant understanding everything.
It's understandable to think that, but it's not realistic. Even fluent speakers sometimes miss words because someone speaks quickly, quietly, or with an unfamiliar accent.
So what should I focus on instead?
Focus on the main meaning first. Ask yourself, what is this person talking about? Then try to understand the important details.
That sounds less stressful than trying to catch every word.
It is. Imagine you're listening to someone describe their weekend. You miss one word, but you understand that they visited a friend, went to a restaurant, and watched a movie.
Then I've understood the main story, even though I missed one word.
Exactly. You should keep listening instead of stopping mentally at every unfamiliar word.
I have a terrible habit of doing that. If I hear one word I don't know, I start thinking about it, and then I miss everything that comes next.
That's a very common listening trap. The speaker doesn't stop, but your brain does.
That's a painful description, but it's completely true.
The solution is simple. Keep moving. If the unfamiliar word isn't essential, let it go and continue listening.
But what if the word seems important?
Then remember it and check it later. You don't need to interrupt the entire conversation immediately.
So I'm learning to stay with the conversation instead of fighting with one difficult word.
Exactly. That's an important listening skill.
There's another thing I struggle with. Sometimes I know every word in a sentence, but when a native speaker says the sentence quickly, I don't recognize it.
That's because spoken English doesn't always sound like the careful English we see in textbooks.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Imagine someone asks, "What are you up to this weekend?"
I know that phrase. It basically means, what are you doing this weekend?
Exactly. But if you've only studied the individual words, the phrase might seem strange.
Because up doesn't have its normal meaning there.
Right. That's why you should listen for groups of words, not only individual vocabulary items.
So instead of memorizing the word up, I should remember the useful expression, what are you up to?
Exactly. These groups of words are sometimes called chunks, and they are extremely useful for spoken English.
Why are chunks so important?
Because fluent speakers often use familiar groups of words automatically. They don't create every sentence from individual words each time they speak.
So if I hear useful phrases again and again, they can eventually become automatic for me too.
Yes, repeated listening helps your brain become familiar with natural patterns.
That explains why I sometimes understand an expression immediately, even though I can't remember when I learned it.
Exactly. You may have heard it many times without consciously studying it.
So, repetition is doing some hidden work in the background.
It really is. That's why listening to the same material more than once can be surprisingly effective.
I usually want to watch something new every time. Isn't repeating the same podcast boring?
It can be if you repeat the entire thing too many times. But repeating a short, useful section is different.
How would you recommend doing that?
Let's say you find a 3-minute conversation that you enjoy. First, listen to the whole conversation without stopping.
What's my goal during that first listen?
Simply understand the general situation. Don't use a dictionary and don't worry about every unfamiliar word.
Then I listen again with more attention.
Exactly. During the second listen, notice useful phrases, interesting vocabulary, and sentences you might want to use yourself.
So, the first listen is mainly about meaning, while the second is about language.
That's a good way to think about it.
And what should I do with the useful phrases I notice?
Choose just a few. You don't need to write down 20 new expressions.
Maybe 3 or 5 useful expressions would be enough?
That's a much better target. Learn a small number of expressions well, instead of collecting a huge list that you'll never use.
Let's try one right now. Suppose I hear, I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Good example. What could you do with that expression?
I could make it personal and say, I'm looking forward to my vacation.
Perfect. And you could also say, I'm looking forward to seeing my friends.
So I heard the expression, understood it, and then connected it to my own life.
Exactly. That's when listening starts helping your speaking directly.
I like that, because I'm not just memorizing a phrase, I'm actually using it.
And personal examples are easier to remember because they mean something to you.
So here's the first big lesson. Don't just listen for words. Listen for useful phrases and expressions.
Exactly. And there's another important lesson. Don't choose listening material simply because it's difficult.
That's interesting, because many learners think difficult English must be better English practice.
That's a common belief, but extremely difficult material can actually slow you down.
I've experienced that with movies. Sometimes I watch a film recommended for English learners, and after 5 minutes, I understand almost nothing.
In that situation, the material may simply be too difficult for your current level.
So what should I choose instead?
Choose something where you can follow the main idea, understand a good amount of the language, and still discover something new.
So I want a little challenge, but not complete confusion.
Exactly. Your brain should work, but it shouldn't feel completely lost.
That makes sense. If I understand nothing, I can't learn much from the conversation.
Right. And if you understand everything effortlessly, you may not discover much new language.
So the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle.
Yes. Find content that is interesting, understandable, and slightly challenging.
I think that's something listeners can try immediately. Instead of choosing the hardest English video they can find, choose something they can actually enjoy and follow.
Exactly. And if you're enjoying what you listen to, you're much more likely to come back tomorrow.
Which brings us to another important question. How often should someone listen?
Regularly. You don't need hours every day. Even 15 or 20 focused minutes can become valuable when you do it consistently.
So 20 minutes every day could be more useful than 3 hours once every 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Regular contact with English helps your brain stay familiar with the language.
That sounds a lot like exercise. One huge workout doesn't replace regular exercise.
That's a great comparison. Language learning also benefits from consistency.
So if you're listening right now, here's a simple challenge. Choose one short piece of English you enjoy and listen to it carefully today.
Then listen to it again and notice 3 expressions that you could imagine using in your own life.
Don't worry about understanding every single word. Focus on the message first.
And remember one useful phrase that you can actually say yourself.
That's simple enough to start today.
And that's exactly the point. Good listening practice doesn't have to be complicated.
But I think there are still some listening habits that can quietly stop learners from improving.
Definitely. And once you recognize those habits, you can change the way you listen.
Let's talk about one of the biggest habits that can make listening harder than it needs to be.
You mean translating every sentence into your first language?
Exactly. I still do that sometimes without realizing it.
That's very common. Translation can be helpful when you're learning something completely new, but translating every sentence can slow down your listening.
Because the speaker keeps talking while I'm busy translating the previous sentence.
Exactly. Your brain is trying to do 2 jobs at once.
So, how can I gradually stop translating everything?
Start by using context. If you hear a new word, don't immediately reach for a dictionary. First, ask yourself what the situation tells you.
Can you give us an example?
Imagine someone says, "I forgot my umbrella and now I'm completely soaked."
I might not know the word soaked, but I can guess that the person is very wet.
Exactly. The situation gives you a clue.
Then, if I hear soaked several more times, the meaning becomes stronger.
Right. You're learning the word through context instead of memorizing an isolated definition.
That's interesting, because real conversations give us lots of clues.
They do. Facial expressions, situations, other words, and the speaker's tone can all help you understand meaning.
So I should give my brain a chance to figure things out before using a dictionary.
Yes, but don't avoid dictionaries completely. Use one when a word is important, appears repeatedly, or prevents you from understanding the main idea.
That's a much more practical rule.
Another useful habit is listening with English subtitles when you need extra support.
Some learners say subtitles are bad for listening practice.
I wouldn't say that. Subtitles can be extremely useful when they're used as a learning tool rather than a replacement for listening.
What's the best way to use them?
First, try listening without subtitles. See how much you can understand naturally.
Then I turn on English subtitles if something remains unclear.
Exactly. Watch that section again and connect the written words with the sounds you're hearing.
That would be useful when I know a word on paper but don't recognize it when someone says it.
That's a very common problem. Sometimes your vocabulary is better than your listening recognition.
So I might know the word comfortable when I read it, but I may not immediately recognize it in fast speech.
Exactly. Seeing the word while hearing the pronunciation can help connect those 2 forms in your mind.
Then I can turn the subtitles off and listen again.
That's the ideal next step. You want your ears to become more independent over time.
I like that idea. Subtitles help me understand, but eventually I want my listening skills to do the work.
Exactly. Think of subtitles as training wheels, not the bicycle itself.
That's a good comparison.
There's another technique that can make listening much more active: shadowing.
I've heard that word before, but many learners may not know what it means.
Shadowing means listening to a speaker and repeating their words immediately, either along with them or just after they speak.
So I'm trying to follow their voice like a shadow.
Exactly. You don't need to shadow an entire episode. Start with a short section of 20 or 30 seconds.
What should I focus on while doing it?
Focus on the sounds, pauses, word connections, and general rhythm.
Do I need to copy the speaker perfectly?
No, the goal isn't perfect imitation. The goal is to make your mouth more comfortable producing natural English.
So I hear a sentence and immediately practice saying something similar.
Exactly. This creates a direct connection between listening and speaking.
Could we demonstrate that with a useful sentence?
Sure. Imagine you hear, "I've been meaning to call you."
Then I could repeat, I've been meaning to call you.
Exactly. Now, you could change the final part and make it personal.
I've been meaning to visit my parents.
Perfect. Or you could say, "I've been meaning to start reading more."
That's much more useful than repeating a sentence without understanding it.
Exactly. Understand first, then repeat, then personalize.
I think personalization is really important because it gives the phrase a reason to stay in my memory.
Yes, if an expression connects to something real in your life, you're more likely to remember it.
So listening can give me the language, and personal speaking can help me keep it.
That's a very useful way to think about the process.
What about background listening? Is it useful to have English playing while I'm doing something else?
Yes, but you should understand its role. Background listening can help you become comfortable with the sounds and rhythm of English.
But it shouldn't replace focused listening.
Exactly. If you only have English playing in the background, you may not notice many new expressions.
So I could combine both types.
Definitely. You might spend 15 minutes doing focused listening, then listen casually while cooking, walking, or cleaning.
That sounds realistic for a busy learner.
And realistic routines are the ones people actually continue.
That's probably more important than creating a perfect routine that lasts 3 days.
Exactly. Consistency beats perfection.
There's something else I want to ask. What happens if I listen every day but still don't feel like I'm improving?
First, don't assume that nothing is happening. Listening improvement can be gradual and difficult to notice from one day to the next.
So I might improve without realizing it.
Absolutely. One day you may suddenly notice that a speaker who once sounded very fast now sounds much easier to understand.
That would be a great feeling.
It is. You may also notice that you're recognizing common expressions faster or translating less often.
Maybe I can measure progress by noticing those small changes.
Exactly. Don't only ask, "Am I fluent yet?" Ask smaller questions.
Like, can I understand more than I understood last month?
Perfect. Or can I recognize phrases without translating them?
Or can I respond more quickly when someone asks me something?
Exactly. Those are meaningful signs of progress.
I think learners sometimes become frustrated because they're looking for one huge improvement.
Yes, language growth often happens through many small improvements that eventually become noticeable.
That makes me think about grammar too. Can listening really help us learn grammar naturally?
It can. When you repeatedly hear correct sentence patterns, your brain begins to recognize what sounds natural.
Even if I don't know the grammar name?
Exactly. You might not know the technical rule, but you can still develop a feeling for the correct pattern.
For example, if I repeatedly hear, "I've already finished," that structure starts feeling familiar.
Right. Later, you may naturally say, "I've already eaten," without stopping to think about the grammar rule.
So listening gives grammar a real context.
Exactly. Grammar becomes something you hear and use rather than something you only memorize.
That sounds much more natural.
And that's the bigger goal of listening. We don't want English to remain something you analyze forever.
We want English to become something we can understand and use more automatically.
Exactly.
I think we've talked about a lot of useful ideas, but listeners might be wondering how to turn everything into one simple daily routine.
Let's make one together. Imagine you have 20 minutes available each day.
Okay, what should I do during those 20 minutes?
Spend the first 5 minutes listening without stopping. Focus on the main idea and overall meaning.
Then spend another 5 minutes listening again and noticing useful phrases.
Exactly. Write down only 3 to 5 expressions that seem genuinely useful.
Then what should happen during the next 5 minutes?
Listen to those expressions again. Check anything important you didn't understand and notice how the speaker pronounces them.
And the final 5 minutes becomes speaking practice.
Exactly. Say the expressions aloud and create your own sentences.
So 20 minutes gives me listening, vocabulary, pronunciation, and speaking practice.
Yes, and you can adjust the timing depending on your schedule.
That routine sounds simple enough to repeat every day.
That's exactly what we want.
But before we finish, I think listeners should actually practice something with us.
I completely agree. Let's give them one small challenge they can do right now. Here's your challenge. Think about one English expression you heard during this episode that you would like to use.
Don't choose 5 expressions right now. Choose just one expression that feels useful for your everyday life.
Now, say that expression aloud. Don't worry about your pronunciation being perfect.
Then, create one sentence about your own life using that expression.
For example, if you remember, I've been meaning to, you could say, I've been meaning to call my friend.
Or you could say, I've been meaning to practice English every morning.
Exactly. The important thing is to make the sentence personal.
And here's another challenge for later today. Find a short English conversation and listen to it twice.
During the first listen, focus only on the meaning. Don't stop whenever you hear something unfamiliar.
During the second listen, choose 3 useful expressions and notice how the speaker uses them.
Then say those expressions yourself and create one personal sentence with each one.
That simple routine can turn ordinary listening into real English practice.
And remember, you don't need to understand every word before you can benefit from listening.
You also don't need to listen for several hours every day. Regular practice matters much more.
Choose interesting material, listen actively, notice useful phrases, and give yourself opportunities to use what you hear.
And don't become frustrated when you don't understand something immediately.
Keep listening. Your brain needs repeated exposure before many expressions begin to feel natural.
I really like that idea because it takes some pressure away from English learning.
Exactly. You don't have to become fluent overnight. You just need to keep giving your brain good English input.
And little by little, you'll notice that familiar phrases become easier to understand.
Then those phrases become easier to remember.
And eventually, you may start using them without thinking so much.
That's the real power of listening. You're not simply hearing English. You're building a collection of natural language patterns inside your mind.
So if you've been listening to English but feeling stuck, don't give up.
Instead, change the way you listen. Focus on meaning. Notice useful expressions. Repeat important sections. And connect listening with speaking.
And here's our question for you. What English expression did you learn from today's conversation?
Write your answer in the comments and try to use that expression in a sentence about your own life.
We'd love to read your sentences and see what you're practicing.
And if this conversation helped you improve your English, don't forget to like the episode and subscribe to English Daisy Podcast.
Keep listening, keep practicing, and remember that every conversation gives you another chance to learn.
Thanks so much for spending this time with us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and learned something you can actually use.
Keep your English around you every day, even if you only have a few minutes.
We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep listening and keep speaking.
Take care, everyone, and enjoy your English learning journey.